So this month we are thrilled to welcome to the Creative Mornings stage Andy Irvine with his talk Home is a Feeling. So Andy is currently leading the user experience research team at FreeAgent. He is the guy that is keeping everyone laser focused on making those great products for their customers. He's been working in digital since the Wild West days of 1998, which means he surely must know something about this online stuff. Surely. His words, not ours. Currently, before joining FreeAgent, he was head of UX at Blonde, working with Royal Mail, Commonwealth Games, ScotRail, and Iron Brew to create great experiences for their customers. On the side, Andy is the creator and host of Five Things, a breakfast event, love a breakfast event, where invited speakers share their key takeaways from their favourite non-fiction books. Like I say, Andy's talk is titled Home is a Feeling. And welcome to the stage, Andy Irvine.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca. Oh, a wonderful intro. When you say home is a feeling, it sounds like a really sort of cheesy sort of pop ballad, doesn't it? So maybe I could riff off that for a bit, but no one's here to see that. Yeah, well, thanks so much for that. Thanks so much for that, Rebecca. That was such a lovely intro. And yeah, she said, my name's Andy, and by day I am a design researcher. Which I really love. You know, it gives me the permission to get like really nosy about what people do and how they think. But I'm definitely not here today as a researcher, but as a member of the Edinburgh creative community. For years, Creative Mornings has kept me connected to the creative community in Edinburgh, and I genuinely can't be thankful enough to everyone, you know, involved for making it happen over so many years. It's not only kept me connected, but it's also like massively increased my exposure to different aspects of creativity. You know, stuff that just would not have crossed my path otherwise. And also like all those cakes, croissants and coffee, man, I just like miss those so much. So hopefully we'll get back to that one day. So it's a genuine privilege to be on the other side sharing a talk. I had a quick hunt through the photo archives. And the first time I pop up is around 6 years ago with a bit of a funny pose there. But it was just so nice to look back through these photos. You know, they're my first time sharing pastries with friends. Loads of folk so close together, which sort of feels a bit freaky now. The tasty bagels, the tasty coffee, turning up at sort of 8:30 in the morning, all sweaty and discombobulated. And the one in the meadows where we all got like proper wet. I don't know if anyone remembers that. Really good times. But whenever I'm at Creative Mornings, I feel at home. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I was given the topic of home maybe a few months back, and it's been just such an incredibly interesting lens to apply to my own life and do a bit of navel gazing about what home means to me. And a few months back, it happened over a quote that really turned the whole thing on its head for me. I've been searching for years for the ideal place, and I've come to the realization that the only way to find it is to be it. And that's from Alan Watts. So I'm going to start by sharing the conclusion that I came to about what home means to me. And home isn't a physical place. Home isn't even where the heart is, but home is a place where you can feel like yourself. And a lot of these themes have been talked about already today. So, you know, what does it mean to, you know, feel like yourself? It's fairly nebulous, but it's a really hard one to pin down. I could start describing it as a sense of, you know, contentment, connectedness, safety, you know, just like everything feels like just okay. The Stoics use the word sympathia to describe this feeling. It means a connectedness with the cosmos. The French philosopher Pierre Hadot is referred to it as an oceanic feeling, which I love, a sense of belonging to something larger. And as I've got older, I'm getting pretty old now, I've realized how important it is to feel like yourself as often as possible. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, how I started to work out what it means to feel more like myself through people, through nature, and then finally through creativity. So a few years back in 2015, I started to get a bit more purposeful about reading books. I wanted to read more, but I also wanted to be a bit more intentional about what I read, broaden my exposure to different perspectives, gain insights into lives that are just like totally different from mine, try and grasp, at least a basic understanding of domains I just had like not a clue about, like economics or quantum physics. So at the start of the year, I make a list of 25 books that I wanted to read, nothing too ambitious. Make sure they cover like a broad range of topics and, well, get started reading. But I found it like really hard to retain all that information. So every time I finished a book, I jotted down 5 things that I'd like to take from the book into my life. And I was like super curious about what other folks found important about a specific book and how they used the material to make changes in their lives. And I thought other people might be curious about this too, fingers crossed. So around 2 years ago, I started a morning meetup called 5 Things. And it's a wee morning session where 3 people share 5 key takeaways from a nonfiction book. And it's been great, like one of the best things I've done in a long while. I really enjoy doing it. It takes like quite a bit of work, but I get like, way more back than I put in. But when I think about, when I think back, my motivation to start 5 Things wasn't really about learning. Obviously that's like super cool. But this is all about connecting with people with a similar level of curiosity about the world as I have, people who are open to new ideas, alternative perspectives, being part of an open forum, discuss like fairly challenging and personal topics without it getting too heated. I suppose I was seeking a safe place to discuss difficult things, and that's what I really wanted. And that's like what happened. And I've met the best people through 5 Things and had some truly profound experiences. I think like last month, Nathan kindly shared his takeaways from the 100-Year Life and how the book caused him to make some significant changes to support the life he wanted to live. Books can be life-changing for sure, but sharing how it's affected you personally in a safe space seems to create a deeper connection between everyone. And we've caught a few times since that just to chat about this more deeply. And now I'm thinking about like health, relationships, work through a very different lens. So like life-changing, yeah, possibly. The 5 Things has organically blossomed into a really lovely place, maybe something I call a support network. And I just didn't have anything like that before, and I'm really grateful for it. We chatted about systemic racism, safe places for women, architecture, sex work, and all in a place that feels like home to me. Somewhere I can be more myself. And I think that's the same for, a lot of the people that come along, which is really cool. So each time a session comes to a close, I feel, as the Stoics said, sympathia, connected to something bigger. I feel more like myself and it feels great. So I suppose the question I can ask myself, to feel more at home, where are my opportunities to create, connect with people who are, curious about new ideas, open to different perspectives, in a place that feels safe to discuss difficult things, very much like Creative Mornings. I encourage folks to get out and about when listening to 5 Things. There's no need to contribute. It's not interactive. And well, I think we spend too much time stuck on video calls. And a lot of the folks have just done that, just that. They've gone for a walk, sat under a tree, sat in the garden, video off, just listening. I think, which is great. I think we should probably try to spend more time in natural environments, which brings me neatly onto finding home through nature. I started surfing a while back. I suppose as an attempt to learn something new, challenge myself a bit. I've always been kind of afraid of the sea, adopting that mantra. There's a lot of things there that just do not want us there. So I suppose I wanted to challenge that. But the actual experience of surfing, it just wasn't quite what I was expecting at all. You know, I got over my fear of the sea pretty quickly, to be honest, and it became quite a transformative experience for me. And once I gained a bit more confidence, I started going by myself in the early morning, just after sunrise, just me and the sea. And just to be clear, like I'm absolutely awful at surfing. It's, you know, probably better described as like bobbing around in the sea kept afloat by, you know, a big chunk of polyurethane. But I really don't care about that. It's not about that for me. Um, it's about being in the sea, connected to nature, like literally immersed by nature. You can get more immersed, you know, at the mercy of the sea's immense power, you know, being so present. Like you just kind of got to be with an 8-foot wave like crashing down on your head. So immersed in the water, the sounds, the forces of the waves, you just can't avoid connection. But in all that sort of furor, you know, I feel really peaceful. And the feeling I get after surfing is a similar one to the one I get after 5 things at home, more myself, connected. And connecting with nature is like, I suppose, quite a funny concept, isn't it? Like it implies that we're not already part of nature, which isn't true. I think Alan Watts, again, sums this up really nicely. We all have this feeling, I came into this world. Well, that isn't true. You came out of this world like a leaf comes out of a tree. So when I look back, you know, what I really needed, it wasn't a new activity or to get over my fear of the sea. You know, I took up surfing to find a connection with nature that I really didn't know was missing. And surfing was an attempt to connect with home. Because I don't know if you'd agree, but nature is our home and we're just so disconnected from it. I really like this quote from Clemens G. Harvey. You know, we are not strengthened by our connection to nature, but weakened by our separation from it. I think that's my sort of new approach to connecting with nature. So to feel more at home, you know, where are my opportunities to find strength through immersion in nature, you know, find mental space in nature, and find peace by just observing nature. So I've worked in the creative industries for over 20 years now, a long time. First as a designer and now as a researcher. And it's genuinely a privilege to, you know, get paid to flex your creative muscle. I've come to the conclusion that there are two distinct modes of creativity. Creativity fueled by a goal, most commonly a commercial one, and a creative mode, you know, it's more playful and free. But up until now, I've not really drawn the distinction, or at least like the implications of the distinction. And though I'm like being creative, it's mostly in a mode that's driven by some sort of commercial objective. Now, even if it's not in the service of my day job, you know, creative output is likely to take the form like of a side project or a side hustle, as it's called, which I really hate that term, or be driven by self-improvement. And they're both driven by some sort of goal, and that's the mode I'm always in creatively. Like we're so conditioned to be productive. I feel like every second of my life should have some sort of output or meaning. And I feel like really guilty about doing stuff that doesn't have some sort of purpose. And you know, that's like kind of fine in a way. You know, we've got to make a living. But it also feels it's incredibly important to carve out time just to be creative for the sake of being creative. I don't know if you remember when you're a kid just drawing or playing like with Lego, in my case, just for the sake of making. There's no goal, no ego, just the best feeling. And playful creativity is perhaps the best description I can give this. And it's a really hard mode to get into. It's hard to shake our conditioning. It's hard to give ourselves permission just to play. So I've made music on and off for most of my life, but just haven't had time to do so in like years and years. Stuff gets in the way. But last year, maybe due to being stuck indoors, I started making music again, under the guise of L1 or Llama. I had no idea why, it just happened. But yeah, maybe being stuck indoors, I started making music again. But this time it felt like really different, and I'm really not sure why. It felt more playful, and for the first time, I really did not care about the output. I didn't really care if anyone listened. It was for me. I just started making daft wee spaceships out of Lego. And every time I created in that mode, I got that lovely warm feeling of contentment, one you could describe again as sympathia, and that feeling of being connected to something bigger. So in retrospect, this is perhaps what I was seeking. It wasn't about the music, it wasn't about my ego screaming for attention. It was about creating a place where I could be more me, where I could feel more at home. So again, I'd like ask myself, to feel more at home, how can I intentionally seek opportunities to create for no other reason than just to feel more like myself? A place to be free of self-judgment, explore ideas uninhibited by goals, and create uninhibited by ego. So I'm going to say, like, hopefully everything I said was actually like quite fairly obvious, because like none of this is new to us. We already know what home feels like and what to do to feel more at home. But somehow, as I did, we get distracted. And maybe it'd be, helpful to just be more intentional about drawing things into our lives that make us feel more at home. So here's my home. How can I feel more at home through people who are curious about new ideas, open to different perspectives, in a place that feels, safe to discuss difficult things? Through nature, find strength through immersion in nature, finding mental space in nature, finding peace by just observing nature. How can I create, free from self-judgment, which is difficult, explore ideas uninhibited by goals, and create uninhibited by ego? So I'm sure I'll refine my home as I grow, but I'm like kind of happy with how it looks just now. It's like a good prototype. I'll run with it for a wee while. But obviously, like, home is different for everyone, which is why it makes it such a special place. So I thought it might be nice for you to think, and we've already thought about this, but what are the things that make you feel more like yourself, more at home? So I'd like to leave you with a question. What makes you feel more like yourself, more at home? And that's me. Thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Ooh, Zoom claps.
Oh, Andy, thank you so much.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Oh, thank you. Really sure that a lot of us resonate with that sense of coming back to yourself, seeking out those moments of connection, particularly after the year that we all have had. I'm really curious to know, kind of like, how do you create that emotional sense of home in your physical home? Do you have a certain space in your house that is kind of dedicated to, creativity and connection? Do you have outdoor space that you feel connected to? Kind of, how do you take that emotional and make it physical?
Good question. Don't think so. No, not intentionally. No, like, I've got lucky enough to have like a really good like attic space, which it's like sort of semi not functional. But as you see, I've got like guitars and music. It's like really messy. So I suppose this is my place, but yeah, I don't intentionally come up here to sort of seek home. Maybe that's something else I can add, like finding actual spaces to create them. But I think that was, I suppose it was sort of less about the sort of physical space in a sense that it could. I think, you know, as Alan Watts said, you know, don't achieve, well, it must be horribly hard to achieve, but you know, it shouldn't really matter where you are, the environment you're in. You know, if you can hold these things like within yourself, yeah, you should hopefully feel at home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, maybe sometimes we feel actually a little bit restricted by having like, this is my creative space and this is where I have to go to think and create and be be that kind of creative versions of yourself. But yeah, like you were saying, like it can be anywhere. And I really like what you were saying about encouraging people to participate in 5 things wherever they are. It's not necessarily like they have to be in the zone, as it were.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I'm so glad folks have taken me up on that and just wandered around. I think a few people just turned on their video while they're just in a park or something. It's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
I might jump in with a question of myself, of my own as well. So obviously we're all trying to kind of juggle and balance life, all the things that come along with life, and time's obviously a factor. I know for one that I'm really bad at saying yes to everything, and it's that thing of, you know, being aware, being mindful of actually not giving out all your energy to other people and saving a bit for yourself to, you know, like you say, do things for yourself. Did you have to, are there any kind of things that you had to make compromises on, or you had to think that needs axed, I don't, you know, in order to kind of make more time for yourself to be
Yeah.
you know, to do these things?
So yeah, I don't think I intentionally like axed anything. But I think, yeah, sort of main thing, well, I've only discovered this, you know, over the past few months, and I think that's why it was so lovely to, you know, be given this topic, but to actually like identify the things, you know, that in your past have made you feel at home. So you don't necessarily need to, you might have to make trade-offs, I suppose. But when you go, okay, that, I need to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as you say, you know, it's really hard, you know, to say no to a lot of, well, especially like sort of commercial projects. And yeah, you might not have to, I suppose, but even where can you find, I don't know, 5-10 minutes just to go, okay, I'm feeling a bit weird. I just need to like do something that I know sort of grounds me. And that's
Mm-hmm.
very probably personal. Yeah, sorry, it's a very wavy answer to
No, that's good.
to your question,
Because
Molly.
I guess rather than like looking at it from the negative perspective of what you get rid of, it's more like if you intentionally choose to prioritize things, then you will naturally give those things time, as opposed to, you know,
Yeah.
scrolling through Instagram or watching Netflix. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, hey,
time.
maybe that's your home. So if you feel nice and comfortable in
Yeah.
Instagram, probably not though. But yeah, I think like the biggest, or maybe like the sort of most profound thing for me, which just seems so obvious, that, you know, especially if you work in the creative industries, you know, you're always like feeling that you're being creative, but it is creative for someone, usually someone else's objective. So you don't really allow time just to sort of do that sort of playful, or I didn't anyway, sort of that playful creativity. And yeah, I'm so glad that I've identified that as a distinct mode of creativity for myself, and I'm going to do more of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We've got a great question here from Danny, actually. So they ask, I like that it is important to have a safe space to discuss difficult things, not just to be comfortable. How do you view / implement boundaries?
Oh man.
Just hitting you with the big questions.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I was debating this one a lot. You know, should it, maybe safe space isn't the sort of right word even. I'm not really sure. I suppose it is actually. It's psychological safety, isn't it? It's that you feel you're with a group of people to feel comfortable enough to maybe say something wrong. You know, like there's a lot of really challenging issues, and I'll put my hand up, you know, like, things like systemic racism, sexual abuse, or in the workplace, all these things, like I am still learning about these things and will make mistakes, and it's really difficult to do that in like open forums like social media and whatnot. It's really, but yeah, when you find that sort of safe space, that can be friends, you know what I mean, doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's really comforting to share all those thoughts, and yeah, just to be a little bit more vulnerable and learn from everyone else. So the sort of implementations of boundaries, I've not actually had a moment where I've sort of felt anyone's like stepped over boundaries, or I don't think I could articulate what the boundaries are. Maybe like when we get back to the real world, if like people start like punching each other or something, like, oh, okay, enough's enough.
Yeah, turns into club.
Yeah, but I think like verbally everyone should, as long as they're not abusing anyone, which is pretty rare in the, or luckily for me, in the circles that I gravitate in. Yeah.
No, that's a really interesting answer, and I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there in terms of just the attitude that everyone brings to it. And I think if everyone brought an attitude of I don't know everything, and I'm learning and I'm gonna say something wrong, but please correct me or challenge me if that's the case. I think it's a very, very important way to be. We've got a question here from Ryan asking, do you consciously turn up people, nature, or creativity when you start feeling less like yourself? And I guess, yeah, just like if you're feeling less yourself, if you're feeling a bit, like you say, ungrounded, do you find yourself kind of amping those things up in your life, like intentionally going, right, I need to do more of these things?
I think that's maybe the exciting thing for me is, again, like being able to articulate it through a talk and doing a little bit of like navel gazing. I haven't been intentionally doing that, like most of my life, but yeah, it's made me think, yeah, maybe I can be more intentional. And I think, yeah, it's a good phrase, Ryan, to sort of like maybe amp up some of these things because I know what they are, and it's really difficult to articulate, isn't it? But you can, it's like a gut feeling, isn't it? When you're not really feeling yourself, and you can go, okay, like I know these things will really like help me. I'll go, even though I'm knackered, I'll go like surfing on Wednesday like evening or something, because every time I get, that connectedness, I feel more at home, I feel way better. And I can do the same with like, yeah, I'll just like go make some music for like a couple of hours, just try and get myself into that mode, don't care what the output is, sort of thing. So yeah, probably will like intentionally amp up some of those things.
Nice one. Rebecca, I've been chatting away, so have you spotted any other questions, or have you got any? Just got one. Yeah, if you spotted any.
Yeah, of course. So we just have one from Emily. So Andy, you spoke about a couple of specific examples of people, nature, creativity. So 5 things: the sea, making music. Does it have to be any of those specific things to you? Or can you form, or can any form of nature work, for example? So I guess you've mentioned those specific things in your talk, but are they the specific things you go back to, or have you got other things that you kind of, glean confidence and comfort from?
Yeah, not probably just now. Well, there's probably like lots of examples of people when I've left. I've got so many lovely people in my life, which is lucky. So yeah, I just use one example of 5 things, but it's probably trite, but being at home with my family does give me those feelings as well. And I've got like lots of lovely friend groups. I get the same thing, but probably I'm a bit crap at like seeking those out. The sort of nature thing, yeah, to be honest, like surfing just now is the only sort of thing that gives me that feeling. I do a lot of running, and I suppose that's not necessarily in nature, but it definitely doesn't give me that same sense of connectedness or immersion. And just now creatively, you know, I'm lucky to have a background in music, so I can sort of just dip into that really quickly and pick it up. So creatively, because it's nothing to do with my day-to-day job, it's like, and I have no like nothing tied to it. Yeah, I can pick that up really easily, but I don't think I've got anything else that would fit that brief just now. Maybe that's a job for me.
I think it's great though if you know exactly what's going to be a tonic for you. That's a really
Totally,
great
yeah.
kind of way of self-soothing and kind of maybe a coping mechanism for some people as well. Claire asked a little bit earlier, have you got any kind of tips for people who are looking to feel a little bit more at home? So I guess going back to what you were saying earlier about boundaries, but also that idea of guilt against productivity, and kind of what are the things you tell yourself to kind of get you to that place of connectedness?
Oh man. So obviously, like, come to 5 things. I mean, that's like a no-brainer for everyone, right? But that's a really tough one, actually. I think it's just taken me so many years to even get to that place, and I can't really articulate why. But as I said, like, you know, creating music recently was one of the first times I actually sort of felt I gave myself permission. I didn't feel guilty about just sort of fucking around with music. So so I've totally forgotten the preciseness of the actual specifics of the question.
No, it was more just kind of how do you motivate yourself? What tips would you give somebody to start feeling a little bit more at home or seeking out those things?
Well, I sort of lent a little bit on my like research chops here a little bit. So I think it's good to lean into the things that have already given you that feeling. And yeah, again, it's hard to articulate, but it's not about like gazing forward about things that might, you know, that's very hypothetical. So, you know, yeah, maybe just, as I say, you know, like, ask yourself that question, make a list of things, go, oh yeah, that made me feel really good. Like, it was like 20 years ago, totally forgot about it. Well, let's try it again, see if it works again. And yeah, and then if, you know, if it does give you that sense, you know, it's probably trying to get into the right mindset as well. You know, it's not about like that sort of constant like self-improvement. It's not about making money. You know, what did you do in your past, you know, just made you feel a little bit more connected, and just writing it down. Pretty simplistic, isn't it? I'll create a more complex mechanism of some sort. The home machine 3000.
If you can come and launch it with us at Creative Mornings, that would be great.
Into
Oh, nice one. That kind of loops back to something that you said that I found particularly interesting, about that idea of like, you don't necessarily have to seek out something new. Like, you don't have to go out and try all these new things, and actually it might be something from your past. And you know, that really resonated with me, in particular, because I hadn't really thought about it, but there's a couple of things that I've done recently that I've gotten back into, and they're both a little bit embarrassing because I don't know, like, so one of them, I used to be really into basketball in high school, and the whole way through uni, I was like, I'm going to join the basketball team, and I never did. I was too intimidated, and I've since tried to join like amateur basketball teams. Like, I don't know if I'm any good anymore is the main thing. But I think it's partly about kind of finding ways in that make you feel comfortable. So there happens to be a basketball court in the park at the bottom of my road, and I got a basketball off Gumtree, and I've just been going down and like by myself when no one else is around, like trying to do it. And the second thing was hip hop dance classes. Used to really love doing hip hop dance classes, which I'm so gangly and awkward, and like there's a big mirror in the dance studio, and like the whole time you're just staring at yourself like, I look ridiculous. But I think you're right that a big thing about it is just letting go of ego, and just being like, I look like an idiot, doesn't sound great, doesn't look great, whatever, I'm just gonna go for it. But yeah, sorry, long rambly way of asking you to maybe kind of circle back to that a bit about, you know, maybe finding childhood things, or, you know, if there's a way to kind of like, I don't know, test the waters, like tiptoe in as opposed to just like launch straight into something. Because
well, the biggest barrier is mental barrier, isn't it? As you said, Molly, it's like maybe do something new, don't really matter, but with the mindset of I don't really care if I look like a total idiot. It's now and it is genuinely fine. Maybe it's easier to do surfing because like you're kind of sometimes just out on your own in your sea, no one like right at in your face going, my God, you look like an idiot. Again, I don't really know how to sort of answer that more, but yeah, it does just say, it's not maybe about the actual activities, but maybe more the mindset change. And I think, as Michaela sort of said, it is like maybe self-acceptance. I know that's like a really cheesy, obvious thing to say, but I really like the idea of, leaning on something that you did ages ago, but maybe when you did it ages ago, you actually cared about the outcome. You probably might want it to be good at basketball. I've got similar things. I used to play a lot of football, and now I'm not so good at football because I'm getting quite old. But I find it really hard to pick football up again and not try and be good at it. And I think that's probably why I purposely chose surfing, because it's like totally new. It's like I had never done anything like that before. So I was happy to adopt that sort of beginner's mindset.
I wonder if there's something about going back to things you did as a kid, and because you were talking about that kind of carefree thing of kids like playing with Lego or drawing, or just being immersed in something for however long without kind of realizing time's passing. That kind of childlike wonder.
Yeah, like drawing, like I could equally do the same thing with art or something. I didn't really do any art, so if I approach that with a beginner's mindset, I could do the same thing for me. But Lego, I used to play with that a lot when I was a kid. Maybe I'll do that for the rest of the day, actually. Just go and muck about with Lego. Sounds like a good use of a day.
Rebecca, we got time for one last question?
I think we can have one more, yeah.
Cool, we've got a great one from Sam here, who's saying, it feels like things that make you feel more at home are generally more disconnected from capitalism. I guess, in brackets, the ridiculous ingrained principle that economic growth is the most important thing. Do you think there's a possible correlation there?
Yeah, massively so. None of those things were tied to capitalism or economics. So I think we just need to burn capitalism down and start. I mean, we'll do it now. That's a better use of today. But I think it's a really good point. Is maybe that's a really clear distinction, is to choose something that isn't, motivated by any sort of form of monetary compensation, or even like connected to our sort of capitalist like systems. And music for me, because I have no intention to earn any money, or I think I've earned 0.03p or something so far. Surfing, it's just out in the sea, totally disconnected from anything. And in 5 things, I have just no intention to commercialize that in any way or form. It's just like a nice group. So maybe that's a good distinction to draw.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love, just the idea of just doing something for the enjoyment, not for anyone else.
Seems so obvious, but it's really hard to do, isn't it? We're so like, it's that sort of, like, even like listening to you say that, Molly, I go, no, I've got to make the best use of my time.
You have to be efficient at all times, efficient and productive.
Well, Andy, thank you so much again for such a gorgeous talk, and for sharing your points of connection. I'm sure lots of us will be feeling inspired about, I'm sitting here thinking, like, what are the things that I loved when I was a kid that are, that disconnect you from from everything else that's going around. So I'm sure a lot of people will be heading off to get stuck into some Lego or do some painting or something this afternoon. So thank you so much again.